Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Sassaron, the Herald of Cosplay, and today I'm gonna talk about my awesome paper mache eggs. I got assigned the task of making eggs for a magical creature class at the Nordic Academy of Sorcery, a very awesome LARP, inspired by Harry Potter. So I started to make eggs, and I couldn't find a base in the store because it's not Easter yet. So I blew up some balloons, which I covered in paper mache, which is made from newspaper, shredded into pieces, and put into a ball of water and wallpaper glue mixture, or flour, depending on what you have at hand. But the wallpaper glue makes it sit a lot better, and sort of make it hard when it eventually dries. Paper mache is very cheap, efficient, a bit slow drying though, and it's very fun for the whole family, especially for children and kindergartners alike, and young adults and cosplayers. Once the surface is dry, it will retain its shape even if the balloon deflates or punctures, and then you can proceed to paint it. In this case, I decided to paint it with a mixture of sand I found outside, acrylic paint, and latex mixture, depending on the texture and feel I want to achieve. Latex is natural rubber bought in liquid from stores or in tubes, which are used to seal cracks in tiles and protect against water and humidity damage. The result is a rubbery-like texture and feel, which is borderline organic, but also quite waterproof. The liquid version is bought from hobbyist stores, meanwhile the one in tubes are bought from hardware stores. That being said, latex will wreak havoc on your pencils if you are not careful and clean them properly with fresh water. Also, while all of this is going on, you will also probably notice that it takes a lot of time to paint things, and even more time for it to dry, and if you're not careful with heat, the balloon will puncture, even though using a heat gun does speed up the process considerably. Depending on how you see it, painting is a slow process, and this whole process will take a lot of time to dry. And the same holds true for latex and glue. In this case I'm using wood glue because it comes in big quantities, is cheap, and it gives a very glossy surface and is very good for gluing things. Mix all the ingredients into a bowl, such as glue, paint, latex and sand. Give it a good twirl and apply it to the surface. The reason I'm using glue in this case is to attach several seashells found at several seashores to make it look sweet. Things that have been exposed to salt water is a good idea to rinse in fresh water and dry off with a towel, in order to make them smell less, last longer, and in order to clean away some of the imperfection that makes it hard to glue it onto a surface. And due to the paint being mixed with glue, these seashells should stick to the surface quite well. If not, just add some more glue and stick them on. It's simple as that. Now that I'm done with the first part of the seashell egg, I decided to let it dry and work on the other one, and that one is supposed to have the theme of a forest fairy, a creature with leaf wings. So I decided to paint it red and orange. However, latex is white, so the color became pink instead. So I just painted all the sides and at the same time squashed down any dry paper sticking out, because it's still a bit flaky because of newspapers. I had to redo most of this balloon and blow up a new one, because it punctured due to too much heat and strain. That is one of the unfortunate side effects by using a heat gun to make latex, paint and glue dry quicker. Other than that, if you hold it for too long, the paint and the glue will start to boil and get second-degree blisters, much like a sunburn. In fact, latex and paint work pretty much as a second skin. It's also important to treat the surface with different materials in order for the paint job to appear different, and to get the illusion of a completely different material than the original paper. Unfortunately, it was still winter when I was making this video, but this was no snow Unfortunately, there was some winter when I was making this project, so I couldn't really find any good green leaves, nor any autumn colored ones, so I just had to go with some brown ones from last year. After slowly but surely covering the surface in leaves, every inch was covered, I glued on some bracken. I'm not entirely sure which species of bracken it is. Also, eventually they will turn brown as well, so that's going to be a problem, of course. And they will also dry up, but I suppose at some point I can just paint them green again. Eventually I painted the egg with the 7 seashells on top orange and more reddish orange, in order to differentiate the eggs. After all, they were supposed to belong to different houses, and each house has a different theme and color scheme. Plus, it looks really awesome, and very fantasy-like. As you can see here, I have 3 distinct eggs. One with rocks on, and that's not going to work at all. So I had to go over it all and make a new one, and find a better solution instead of gluing rocks, cause they will not stick. As a side note, latex smells really bad. The 2 eggs are now done, which gives me time to work on the first one. And the first egg is black, boring and bland. I am fixing that with blue and sand. I just pour it onto the surface and scrape it on so it looks like it's running. The first egg, which went pop due to too much heat, I rebuilt and made stronger, better, and covered in a thick layer of latex, and I suddenly got the epiphany and the awesome idea of making it an alien egg, as seen in Aliens. The xenomorph egg is a thing that opens on top, and out bursts a facehugger that gives you a face full of wang, and then you die, when its child bursts through your chest, killing you instantly. Perfect for House Scorpio, which is one of the houses at the Sorcery Academy. And then I cut out several pieces of foam and trimmed the edges with a rotary tool to make them smooth and glue them onto the surface. And then I used more of the grey latex mixture in order to hide the gap between the balloon and the plates, and it also glues them in place properly. And then I painted them with another color and liquid latex instead to make them more rubbery membrane. It feels really weird when you touch it, and it also looks kind of organic. After making these round pods for the egg all the way around, I made a podium just to keep it stable while I was painting it, and I also painted the bottom while at it. When I was done with that slow and tedious process, of adding the pods to the side, I made a cross shape on top and painted some green as well, and then I slowly but surely opened the 4 flaps and added more latex and started to paint the inside with a flashy color. Since I used latex, the flaps become flexible, so I could close it more or less. Added some rope just to keep it sealed, and now the children will think it's an unopened egg, and they're in for a big surprise once it opens up. It's going to be an interesting plot development, to say the least. But it's clearly not going to be an alien, because that would be a copyright infringement waiting to happen. That is all for now. Please follow me on Twitch, Facebook and Twitter. Stay awesome.